My parents charged me rent since I was 16, stole my identity, and ruined my credit, so I made one move that exposed everything and shattered their lies. With a calculated strike, I exposed their deceit, unraveling a web of betrayal in a showdown that left them reeling. Prepare for a heart-pounding tale of manipulation, rebellion, and a son's fierce fight for freedom. I grew up in what I thought was a pretty normal middle-class family in the suburbs. Dad works in finance and Mom's a part-time property manager. They were always obsessed about money. I remember getting lectured for hours when I was 11 because I asked for new tennis shoes. My old ones literally had holes in them. They'd always talk about how money doesn't grow on trees and how you need to learn the value of a dollar while somehow always having cash for their own luxuries. My older sister moved out when I was 14. She's 8 years older than me. She just disappeared one day while I was at school. My parents told everyone she was going through a phase and was being rebellious. I found out years later she'd been paying them rent too, since she got her first job at 16. I haven't talked to her in years. My parents made sure of that. So, back when I was 16, this was like 8 years ago, I was super into digital art and animation, not like anime stuff, more like those animated logos and intros you see on YouTube gaming channels. I started out just doing it for fun, posting my work on TikTok and Behance. Nothing serious at first, just messing around with Cinema 4D and learning as I went. Then one day, this small gaming YouTuber with 100,000 subscribers DM'd me, asking if I could make him a channel intro. He said he'd pay $50, 0 cents for it. I almost fell off my chair. Up until then, I'd just been doing this for fun. Never thought I could actually make money from it. So, I made his intro and he loved it. He posted about it on his TikTok, tagged me, and suddenly my DMs were blowing up with other YouTubers wanting similar stuff. "You're a star," he messaged, hyping me up. Within a few months, I had a decent little business going. I was charging between $400, 0 cents, and $900, 0 cents per animation, depending on how complex they wanted it. By the time I turned 17, I was pulling in between $4,000, 0 cents, and $5,000, 0 cents a month. For a high school kid, that was insane money. I was smart about it, too. I set up a proper Stripe business account, kept track of all my income, and even set aside money for taxes because I'd read online that you're supposed to do that. Here's where things start going sideways. My parents obviously noticed something was up. Plus, I'd bought myself a new desktop and VR headset for work. They sat me down one day after school for a family meeting. At first, they acted all proud and supportive, our son the entrepreneur. Dad was going on about how mature and responsible I was. Then Mom dropped this bomb. "Since you're making adult money now, we think you should have adult responsibilities." I'm sitting there thinking maybe they want me to pay for my own streaming services or something. Nope. They wanted rent from their 16-year-old kid. Not like a small symbolic amount either. They wanted $1,200, 0 cents a month. Their reasoning? That's what you'd pay in the market. Like what? This is the market, and most 16-year-olds don't pay their parents rent at all. Looking back now, I should have seen the red flags, but at the time I was making good money and thought maybe they were trying to teach me about responsibility or something. Plus, they kept talking about how this would prepare me for the market and teach me financial management. The worst part, they made this whole show of being fair about it. They sat down with a calculator, showed me how they came up with the $1,200, 0 cents figure based on local rent prices and utilities, and even made a little spreadsheet about it. I remember trying to negotiate, saying maybe we could start lower and work up to that amount. They shut that down real quick. In the market, you can't negotiate your rent. Plus, they hit me with the "you should be grateful we're not charging you" premium rate line. Premium rate for what? The bedroom I'd been living in since I was 3? But here's the thing. At that point, I was still making way more than most kids my age. Even after paying them $1,200, 0 cents, I was still clearing like $2,800, 0 cents to $3,500, 0 cents a month. So I figured whatever, I'll play along. Maybe they're right and this will teach me something. Plus, I was kind of proud that I could pay rent, you know? Like, look at me. I'm basically an adult man. Everything started changing after that. They started treating me like some random tenant when it came to money, but still like a little kid for everything else. The privacy thing was the first major issue. They just barged into my room whenever they felt like it. No knocking, no heads up, nothing. This one time, I was in the middle of a Zoom call with this client who was paying me $2,000 0 cents for a big project, my biggest contract yet. Dad just walks in, doesn't even look at my screen, and starts going through my closet looking for some wrench he'd stored in there. The client's watching this whole thing. Super professional, right? I lost that contract because the client thought I was working from my parents' house. I mean, I was, but still. I tried explaining to them that I needed privacy for work, like this wasn't just me playing games or whatever, this was my actual job. Their response? Our house, our rules. Okay, but I'm paying rent. Doesn't that count for anything? Apparently not. So I started doing my own thing. I bought a mini fridge for my room. They hated that. I started doing my own laundry, cooking my own food, basically trying to minimize how much I had to deal with it. Big mistake. Suddenly I'm getting all these passive-aggressive comments. Oh, too good for family dinner now. Look who thinks he's better than everyone. Must be nice to eat whenever you want. Like you're the ones who wanted me to be an adult, remember? The rules kept getting more ridiculous, too. I had to tell them 72 hours in advance if I was going to use the washing machine. Had to ask permission to have friends over while paying $1,200 0 cents in rent, by the way. I couldn't use the kitchen during family recipe hours, which they just yelled at me whenever I was apparently breaking them. But the workspace thing was what really got to me. I had my whole setup in my room. Dual monitors, motion capture rig, the works, all paid for with my own money. One day, Mom decides my desk doesn't match the aesthetic of the house. It was literally a sleek, black desk. She tells me I need to move it to the attic. I was like, hell no, I'm paying rent for this room with my stuff set up this way. She got all teary-eyed and started going on about how I don't care about the family anymore and only think about money. You're tearing us apart, she whined, clutching her chest. But whatever. The breaking point for the whole privacy thing was when they installed one of those smart locks that lets them open my door from the outside. You know, the kind with a remote app you can enter. They said it was for emergencies. Yeah, emergencies, like making sure I wasn't sleeping past 9 o'clock. IML on weekends. I bought a metal doorstop after that and wedged it under my door whenever I was working. They lost their minds about it, said I was making the house unsafe. And what if there was a fire? I don't know, Mom. Maybe knock like a normal person. It got to the point where I was basically living like a stranger in my own house, but with fewer rights than an actual tenant. I couldn't have anyone over without permission, couldn't cook when I wanted, couldn't even rearrange my own furniture. But that $1,200 0 cents rent check, they always made sure to collect that on time. So, fast forward a bit. I'm 23 now, about to graduate college. Online classes plus working, not that my parents gave a damn about my schedule. My animation business was doing pretty well. I had regular clients, steady income, and even started getting known in the gaming community for my style. Then this huge opportunity comes up. There's this massive digital art and gaming convention in Austin called Game Art Summit. One of my biggest clients recommends me for a panel about young artists in the industry. This wasn't just some random convention. We're talking major industry players, potential contracts, networking opportunities, the whole deal. The panel was going to pay for my flight and hotel, plus I had a bunch of meetings lined up with potential clients. This could have been a huge break for my career. I'd been planning it for months, had all my presentations ready, even made new business cards and everything. So I go. I had an amazing time. Made some great connections, and even got approached by this big gaming company about doing regular work for them. You're the future, a company exec told me, shaking my hand. First time I felt like a real professional. You know, not just some kid making animations in his bedroom. I came back home after 6 days, tired but happy, and walked into a full-blown storm. My parents are sitting in the den with these faces like somebody died. Mom's got tissues everywhere. Dad's got that vein popping in his forehead. That usually means he's about to explode. Turns out they'd planned this massive family reunion the same weekend as the convention. All the aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone would have been nice to know about it, right? Except they never told me. I'm not exaggerating here. Not a single text, email, conversation, nothing. They swear they told me months ago, but conveniently can't remember when exactly. Dad goes off on this rant about family loyalty and how I've changed and only care about money now. "You've betrayed us," he roared, slamming his fist. Then Mom drops this absolute gem. "You're grounded." I literally laughed. I couldn't help it. I'm 23 years old, running my own business, paying them $100, $200, 0 cents a month in rent, and they think they can ground me for missing an event they never told me about? Dad didn't like laughing. Got right up in my face, screaming about respect and how I'm not too old to be taught a lesson. Mom's doing her favorite routine, crying while texting the whole family about what a terrible son I am. I just walked out, went to my room, locked the door with my trusty metal doorstop, and started looking at apartment listings on my phone. They spent the next 4 hours alternating between pounding on my door and guilt-tripping through the walls. Some highlights from their screaming session: "After everything we've done for you?" "Yeah, like charging me rent since I was 16. You're tearing this family apart by attending a work event. You've changed." Yeah, it's called growing up. What will the family think? Probably that you should have told me about the reunion, but the reunion wasn't even that big of a deal. I found out later from my cousin that it was basically just a regular family potluck. They just used it as an excuse to try to assert control. The next morning, I got an email from the gaming company I met at the convention. They want to set up a contract for regular work. Good money, too. Like, really good. I was stoked for about 15 minutes. Then Mom comes shouting with her. "We need to talk about your attitude." And just like that, my good mood evaporated. She'd probably been pacing around the house all morning, working herself up for another confrontation. So, after the whole convention drama, things were super tense at home. I was basically trying to avoid my parents as much as possible while also juggling client work and finishing up my last semester. About a week after the convention mess, my mom came up with this brilliant idea: that we need to reconnect as a family. She decides we're going to have a nice family dinner, just the three of us. Says we need to talk things through like adults, right? I knew it was going to be a show from the moment I walked into the dining room. Mom had gone full theater mode, Dad sitting there with that look on his face. Dinner starts and Mom's playing nice, asking about school, work, the usual small talk, acting like everything's totally normal, like she didn't try to ground her adult son a week ago. I'm just pushing food around my plate, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Then Dad clears his throat. That's when I knew the real show was about to start. "Son, your mother and I have been talking. We're worried about the direction your life is taking." The direction my life is taking. I'm about to graduate college, running a successful business, making more money than most of my friends combined, but sure, let's hear it. He starts going off about respect and family values and how I've changed. Says I'm acting above the family now. Mom's nodding along, doing that thing where she dabs at her eyes with a napkin even though she's not crying. Then they hit me with it. They want to raise my rent. Not because of inflation, not because of higher utilities, but because, and I quote, "you're not spending enough time with the family." Let that sink in. They wanted to charge me more money because I wasn't hanging out with them enough. The current $1,200, 0 cents wasn't enough of a punishment, apparently. They wanted to bump it up to $2,500, 0 cents a month. I must have laughed because Dad's face went purple. "You're mocking us?" he bellowed, veins bulging. "You think this is funny? You live under our roof. You follow our rules. If you don't like it, you can leave." That's when I lost it. I told them they'd been bleeding me dry since I was 16, treating me like a tenant when it came to money, but like a prisoner when it came to everything else. I said they couldn't have it both ways. Either I'm a tenant with tenant rights, or I'm their kid. But this weird in-between wasn't working anymore. Mom starts full-on crying now. "You've broken my heart," she sobbed, clutching her napkin. She's good at switching those on when she needs to. Going on about how she doesn't recognize me anymore, how I've become cold and distant. Meanwhile, Dad's getting louder and louder, spitting out about how ungrateful I am, how they've given me everything. I just sat there watching this whole circus play out, and something finally clicked. This wasn't about family time. It was never about teaching me responsibility or preparing me for the market. It was about control, pure and simple. The more successful I got, the more they tried to clip my wings. The convention thing, they hated that I was building a life they couldn't control. The rent, just another way to keep me dependent on them. I stood up, real calm, and told them I'd think about it. So I was sitting in my room having a full-blown anxiety attack. I knew I needed to get out of there, but the idea of actually doing it was terrifying. Then I remembered Uncle Jeff. Quick background on Uncle Jeff. He's my mom's younger brother, and he's basically the family black sheep. They don't talk about him much except to whisper about how he abandoned the family to chase his dreams or whatever. Turns out those dreams were starting his own software startup and getting the hell away from their toxic nonsense. I hadn't talked to him much growing up. Mom's doing, obviously, but we connected on LinkedIn a few months back. He'd seen some of my work and messaged me saying he was proud of what I was building. That meant a lot, especially since my own parents only saw my business as a way to squeeze more money out of me. So yeah, I called him. It was like 11:00 p.m., but he picked up right away. I spilled everything. The rent since 16, the convention drama, the latest attempt to raise my rent, all of it. He was quiet for a long time, then just said, "This is criminal," his voice low and furious. It was so validating to hear someone else say it, like finally someone else seeing how messed up this whole situation was. He told me about how my mom and their parents had pulled similar nonsense with him when he was younger, said that's why he cut contact and moved away. Then he says something that changed everything. "Kid, you need to get out of there yesterday." I started giving all the usual excuses. I didn't have enough saved up. I had a decent amount, but was scared to use it. I didn't know how to find a place. I'd been browsing apartments for months. I didn't want to damage family relationships. What relationships? Uncle Jeff wasn't having any of it. They're charging their teenage kid rent and trying to control his life, although the relationship is already damaged and it's not your fault. Then he offered me his spare room, just like that. No rent, no conditions. Just come stay with me until you get your feet under you. He's got this sweet apartment in the city about 45 minutes away. Close enough to keep my local clients, far enough to get away from my parents' nonsense. I tried to argue that I should pay him something. He shut that down real quick. Your family and this is what actual family does. They help each other without trying to profit from it. You're not their ATM, he said firmly. We talked for like 4 hours. He helped me make a plan and said I could move in whenever I was ready. No pressure. But he also warned me that once my parents realized I was serious about leaving, things would probably get ugly. The next morning, I started quietly looking into what I needed to do to move. Figured I'd take a couple of weeks to get everything sorted, make it a clean break. The universe had other plans, though. Remember that gaming company from the convention? They emailed me again with a contract offer, really good money, but they needed someone who could do regular in-person meetings. Their office was 20 minutes from Uncle Jeff's place. It felt like a sign, like everything was lining up to tell me it's time to go. I was actually feeling pretty good about everything. Had a solid plan, a place to go, even a new job opportunity. Then my mom knocks on my door. She comes in with that face, sits down on my bed without asking, of course, and starts with the classic, "We need to talk about your future." I'm already thinking, here we go. But I had no idea what was coming. She starts going off about how I've been distant and not contributing enough to the family lately. I'm sitting there thinking, not contributing? I've been paying you $1,200, 0 cents a month since I was 16, but I keep my mouth shut, just let her go on. Then she drops this bomb. They want to raise my rent to $3,000, 0 cents a month. $3,000, 0 cents, because get this, you're about to graduate and will have a real job soon. Apparently my business doesn't count as a real job in their eyes, but wait, it gets better. She says they've been tracking my income. How? And no, I've been making more lately. Says it's only fair that they get a bigger cut, like I'm some kind of investment property that's supposed to pay dividends or something. I must have looked shocked, because she goes, "Oh, don't act surprised. We've been monitoring your business for your own good. Someone has to make sure you're being responsible." "You're our investment?" she said, her eyes cold. That's when something in my brain just snapped. All these years of control, manipulation, guilt trips, it all came crashing down at once. I stood up and just said, "No." She did this weird head tilt thing, like a dog hearing a strange noise. What do you mean no? I mean no. I'm not paying you more rent. Actually, I'm not paying you any more rent at all. I'm moving out, guys. The audible gasp. You'd think I just announced I was running off to join a cult. She actually laughs, like I'm joking. Oh, please. Where would you even go? You can't afford to move out. Dad hears the commotion and comes charging in, gets right in my face, jabbing his finger at my chest, going on about how I owe them and I'm not going anywhere. You're nothing without us, he snarled. Then Mom hits me with the ultimate narcissist's prayer. If you leave, you're dead to us. I just looked at her and said, then bury me. My voice steady. Dad completely lost it, started throwing stuff around my room, saying he'd make sure I couldn't leave. Mom's doing her crying routine, texting family members about her ungrateful son right there in front of me. I grabbed my laptop because that's my literal livelihood and just walked out. I drove around for a few hours trying to clear my head, called Uncle Jeff and told him what happened. He said, "You're free now," his voice warm. I had to sneak back into the house at like 4:00 a.m. to get some clothes and important documents. Found out they'd changed the Wi-Fi password. They'd taken the smart lock off my door and were sitting up in the kitchen keeping watch like I was some kind of criminal. I managed to grab my passport, birth certificate, and a bag of clothes. I left my PC set up for now. Figured I'd come back for it when things calmed down. That was a mistake, but we'll get to that. The last thing I heard as I was leaving was Mom screaming, "You'll crawl back!" But I had no idea what they'd already done to make sure I'd need them. So there I was at Uncle Jeff's place at 5:00 a.m. with nothing but a duffel bag of clothes and my important documents. He didn't even blink, just made coffee and helped me figure out what to do next. The next morning was wild. I woke up to 62 missed calls and about 400 texts, some from my parents, but mostly from random family members they'd called to guilt trip me. Apparently, I'm killing my mother and breaking up the family. Uncle Jeff let me use his spare laptop for work. Remember, my PC was still at their house. We figured we'd go get my stuff once things calmed down. That was the plan anyway. Around 3:00 p.m., I got this weird email from one of my clients asking why I canceled their project. I didn't. I logged into my work email and holy, someone had gone through and canceled every single project I had lined up, including the contract with the gaming company. Guess who had access to my PC? I called the gaming company immediately to explain, but the damage was already done. They'd already hired someone else. Other clients were pissed too. It took me weeks to rebuild those relationships, so Uncle Jeff suggested I check my bank accounts to make sure everything was secure. That's when I noticed something weird. There were these recurring payments I didn't recognize going back years, so I did what I should have done a long time ago. I checked my credit score. There were 5 credit cards in my name, each maxed out, plus a personal loan for $40,000, 0 cents. Total debt over $65,000, 0 cents. The earliest card was opened right after I turned 18. I felt like I was going to throw up. All those years of paying rent, thinking I was being responsible, and they were using my identity to rack up debt. Suddenly, all those random emergencies they needed rent money early for made sense. Uncle Jeff took one look at the credit report and said, "This ends now," his voice steel. We filed a police report right there in Uncle Jeff's living room. The cop who took the statement said, "This happens way more often than people think. It's called familial fraud, mostly parents doing it to their kids." While we're at the police station, my mom texted me, "You've killed us," claiming my father had to go to the hospital because of the stress you caused. I didn't even reply, but just blocked their numbers right there. Uncle Jeff's lawyer friend, who specializes in identity theft, says not to have any contact with them now that we're pressing charges. And yeah, we're pressing charges. Uncle Jeff's friend says we have a solid case. We can prove they opened the accounts, prove they were making minimum payments using my rent money, everything. That's when I realized that all those years they guilt-tripped me about not going away to college, talking about how they just wanted me to have the full experience and how I chose to do online classes instead. Yeah, turns out they needed me at home paying rent just so they could keep up with the minimum payments on their mess. The whole thing was a setup from the start. The rent, the guilt trips about spending time with family, not wanting me to go to the convention, all of it was to keep me closed so they could keep using my identity and money to pay their debts. I'm currently staying at Uncle Jeff's while this all gets sorted out. I had to get a police escort to get my PC and other stuff from their house. Half my equipment was mysteriously broken, but honestly, a small price to pay for getting out. I still can't believe how long I bought into their nonsense. The detective handling my case says it's pretty much open and shut. They found evidence of my parents opening credit cards in my name, going all the way back to when I turned 18. They even found paperwork in their house where they'd been practicing my signature. Who does that to their own kid? The total damage ended up being worse than we thought. The final tally was close to $90,000 when you count all the hidden accounts we found. They had even taken out a boat loan in my name for a boat I didn't even know existed. Real nice, right? Uncle Jeff's lawyer friend has been a freaking lifesaver. Turns out there's a whole process for this kind of identity theft. We're working with the credit bureaus to get everything removed from my credit report. It's a pain in the ass, but it's working. My credit score is slowly climbing back up. And we actually found out where all my rent money actually went. Remember how they charged me $1,200 a month since I was 16? They were using it to make minimum payments on their own maxed-out credit cards, not just the ones in my name. They've basically been running a Ponzi scheme with my identity. Then, last week, my mom tried pulling the ultimate manipulation move. She called me from an unknown number. I'd blocked theirs. I picked up, thinking it might be about the case and the performance this woman put on. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her at first, going on about how she was so sorry and how she never meant to hurt me and they only did it because they were desperate. She said they'd pay everything back if I dropped the charges, that they'd make it right. Then she hit me with the classic, "We're still your parents. We love you. Family has to stick together through hard times." "Come home," she pleaded, her voice breaking. You know what finally made me snap? She said, "We can go back to how things were before." Before what, Mom? Before I found out about the identity theft, before you got caught. Because that's the only thing you're actually sorry about, getting caught. I told her that exact thing and hung up. "You're done controlling me," I said, my voice firm. She tried calling back from like 8 different numbers. Uncle Jeff helped me change my number the next day. The family's completely split over this. Most of the aunts and uncles are taking my parents' side, saying stuff like, "Family doesn't send family to jail," and "You owe them for raising you." Uncle Jeff shut that down real quick, though. He told them all to either support me or get lost. Most of them chose to get lost. I got a message from my cousin, one of the few family members still talking to me, that my parents have been telling everyone I'm mentally unstable and making up lies for attention. They're saying I stole from them and they're the real victims. But the good news is my business is back on track, actually doing better than ever. That gaming company that originally canceled on me, they heard what happened through industry connections and reached out again. I signed an even better contract with them last week. Uncle Jeff's been amazing through all of this, refuses to let me pay rent. He helped me set up new bank accounts at a different bank, even co-signed on a small apartment I'm moving into tomorrow. He says he's proud of me for standing up to them. I also got a letter from my mom's neighborhood council last month saying they're praying for my redemption. Apparently, my parents told them I'm a con artist who stole their investment fund. The criminal case is moving forward. Their first court date is tomorrow. My parents' lawyer reached out about a family reconciliation, but Uncle Jeff's lawyer told them to get bent. No contact means no contact. I still have moments where I feel guilty, like maybe I should have handled it differently. Then I remember they started financially abusing me when I was 16 and kept it up for 7 years. They were never going to stop on their own. The weirdest part, for the first time in my life, I actually feel free. No more guilt trips, no more wondering why my bank account never seemed to grow despite making good money. Just peace. So yeah, that's where things stand. My parents are facing serious charges. I'm rebuilding my credit and my life and slowly learning what actual family support looks like, thanks to Uncle Jeff. My parents are facing charges for $90,000, 0 cents of identity theft. I broke free from their chains, but the wounds of their betrayal linger. A quiet ache that drives me to build a life they can't touch.